Welcome to the deep dive. You know how it is you're looking to quickly grasp what's important and maybe see how different fields tackle similar big ideas?
Right.
Well, that's exactly what we're up to today. We're diving into the fascinating and, well, surprisingly separate development of models for counselor development and models from cognitive science that look at how expertise is built.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Think about it. Both are essentially trying to crack the code on how someone moves from being, a complete beginner to a real expert.
Precisely. We've got some really rich material to explore here, focusing on a 1997 article by Sakai and Nasserbach called Counselor Development and Cognitive Science Models of Expertise.
Okay.
An interesting point right off the bat is that these two significant areas of study, both intently focused on the same core question, how mastery develops, have, well, largely evolved independently. It makes you wonder if the very language each field uses has, contributed to this divide. Cognitive science, with its focus on information processing, might frame expertise in a way that doesn't really resonate with the, relational emphasis often found in counselor development.
Absolutely. Our goal today is to really unpack this lack of crosstalk. We want to pinpoint where these models see eye to eye, where they have fundamental disagreements, and ultimately what you, our listener, can glean from all this to better understand how expertise flourishes in, well, any domain you're interested in.
Right, those key takeaways.
We're aiming for those aha moments that really click without getting bogged down in overly academic language. Okay, so the first really striking observation from Sakai and Nasserbach is this idea that these two fields, counselor development and cognitive science on expertise, haven't exactly been exchanging notes.
Yeah, it's quite something. An interesting point is the parallel they immediately draw to Gladstein's 1983 research.
Oh, yeah.
Gladstein discovered that even within psychology itself, across counseling, social, and developmental psychology, researchers investigating something as basic as empathy were working in isolation, barely referencing each other's findings.
Wow. So even within the same broad field.
Exactly. This raises a fundamental question for you. Why this tendency for different fields studying similar phenomena to remain so disconnected? It appears that the study of how psychological expertise grows has followed, well, a similar trajectory.
It really does make you think, because as the article highlights, while cognitive scientists were developing models of expertise applicable across diverse fields from chess to surgery, counseling psychologists were deeply invested in creating their own models specifically tailored to how counselors become skilled.
Mhm.
Holloway even described it as the central theme, the zeitgeist of thinking around supervision back then.
Yeah, that term really captures it. And the sheer number of these counselor-specific models is quite something. Worthington identified 16 way back in 87, and Watkins added another 6 by 95. So that's at least 22 different ways of conceptualizing how a counselor develops. That's a lot.
22. Wow.
Yes, and it's important for you to appreciate that these counselor development models aren't all the same, as Russell, Crimmings, and Lent pointed out. Some are linear stage models, envisioning development as a progression through distinct phases.
Like steps on a ladder.
Sort of. We're talking about thinkers like Fleming, Hogan, Stoltenberg, and Luttrell and his colleagues. Then you have cyclical models, which view development as more of an ongoing process, like engaging with increasingly complex challenges. Models from Eckstein and Wallerstein, Muller and Kell, and Loganville and his team fit into this category.
Okay, so linear versus cyclical.
Right. The article, and therefore our deep dive today, focuses more on those stage-related models, the linear ones.
Got it. And when you distill these developmental supervision ideas down to their core, Shangyan and Russell highlighted two key underlying assumptions. First, the idea that those being supervised, the supervisees, move through these qualitatively different stages as they gain competence.
Makes sense.
And second, that each of these stages necessitates a different kind of support and guidance from a supervisor to really, maximize their growth. It's like understanding that a young sapling needs different care than a mature tree, right?
Exactly. A great analogy. However, it's also vital for a balanced understanding to consider the criticisms that have been directed at these stage models.
Okay, what were the issues?
Well, Worthington, for instance, questioned whether there was real agreement across the different models and pointed out their tendency to be somewhat vague on the specifics, like the actual factors at play and how they interact.
It's a bit fuzzy.
Yeah, a bit. And Holloway also raised a valid concern about whether it's premature to assume such a neat, predictable path of development.
Like, is it really that straightforward?
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture for you, it underscores the inherent complexity of trying to map out something as nuanced as human development and the acquisition of expertise. It's tough.
Absolutely. But as Sakai and Nasserbach point out, despite these valid concerns, there's still compelling evidence suggesting that counselors do indeed undergo developmental changes as they gain training and experience.
Right. So something is happening developmentally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So while the precise nature of the stages might be open to debate, the fundamental idea of growth and transformation appears to hold true. Okay, so that's a quick overview of the counselor development landscape. Now let's explore where these models start to find common ground with cognitive science models of expertise.
Okay.
The first significant similarity is the essential role of experience.
That's a foundational principle for both. Whether you're examining how someone becomes a chess grandmaster through the lens of cognitive science, or how a therapist evolves into a seasoned practitioner within the counselor development framework, both perspectives agree that expertise isn't something you're simply born with. It requires significant time, dedicated practice, and deep immersion in the specific domain. You got to
Mhm.
put in the work.
That just resonates, doesn't it? You can read every manual on how to play a musical instrument, but you won't truly become proficient until you actually pick it up and start practicing and probably hit a few wrong notes along the way.
Many wrong notes, usually.
Yeah. The second key similarity lies in the recognition of cognitive changes. Both types of models propose that as individuals develop expertise, the very way they think undergoes a transformation.
And what's fascinating here is how these two distinct fields arrive at remarkably similar conclusions, despite not talking much. In counselor development, prominent figures like Stoltenberg and Bloscher drew upon the work of Harvey, Hunt, and Schroeder to suggest that as counselors accumulate experience, their cognitive complexity increases. They become capable of thinking in more sophisticated and nuanced ways.
So thinking gets more complex.
Right. Ragazio de Giglio and Anderson even incorporated a Piagetian perspective, predicting a similar growth in cognitive sophistication.
And then you look at cognitive science, and they talk about cognitive schemata, these mental frameworks we use to organize and interpret information. As we gain expertise, these schemata become more interconnected, forming richer chunks of knowledge, as the researcher Glaser described it.
Chunks of knowledge. I like that.
Yeah, it's almost like your brain's internal filing system evolves from like a disorganized collection of files to a highly structured cross-reference database.
Exactly. And this increasing interconnectedness and sophistication of knowledge enables experts to make much finer discriminations within their specific area of expertise, as Lorigio and Carroll observed.
They can see the details novices miss.
Precisely. And here's where it gets really interesting for you. Ceci and Leiker's study involving racetrack gamblers revealed that it wasn't general intelligence like IQ that predicted success in betting, but rather cognitive complexity related to understanding the intricacies of horse racing.
Whoa, really? Just complexity for that specific thing?
Exactly. That's a powerful illustration of how the way you process information within a specific domain is absolutely key to developing expertise in it, not just general smarts.
It really is a mind-blowing example, and the article directly links this to the assessment skills of counselors. Think about it. Unlike the clearly defined problems you might encounter in a game like chess, or even in medical diagnosis.
Where there are clearer rules.
Right. The issues that psychologists deal with are often very verbally based and lack a rigid structure. So, a counselor with greater cognitive complexity, possessing that more adaptable construct system, is likely to ask more insightful questions, consider a broader range of hypotheses, and ultimately arrive at more accurate judgments about their clients.
That makes perfect sense intuitively, doesn't it? If you have a more flexible and intricate framework for understanding the complexities of human experience, you're just, well, better equipped to navigate the inherent ambiguity and nuance involved in client issues.
Yeah, definitely. The third major similarity between these two perspectives is the idea of qualitative shifts in focus as expertise develops. Ah, yes.
That's right. Counselor development models suggest that novice counselors tend to concentrate a lot on mastering basic counseling skills and strategies. The how-to of therapy,
The mechanics.
Exactly. But as they become more experienced, their focus shifts towards those deeper personal dynamics, such as countertransference, which is essentially how the counselor's own unresolved issues can unconsciously influence their interactions with clients.
The tricky stuff.
Very. And this aligns remarkably well with Anderson's cognitive science model. As skills become more practiced and proceduralized, they become more automatic. This frees up valuable cognitive resources, allowing the expert to attend to other, more subtle and complex aspects of the situation.
So the basics become automatic.
Right. So for the seasoned counselor, the fundamental interview techniques become second nature, enabling them to focus on the more nuanced emotional dynamics at play with the client rather than worrying about, like, am I asking the right open-ended question right now?
Good point. It's just like learning to drive a car. At first, you're hyper aware of every single detail, the steering wheel, the pedals, the mirrors. But eventually, it becomes so automatic that you can carry on a conversation or think about other things while still driving safely.
Hopefully safely.
Hopefully. Okay, so those are some really significant areas of overlap. But Sakai and Nasserbach also point out some crucial differences between these two approaches. The first major distinction lies in the scope of the domain being examined.
This is a critical difference to understand, yeah. Most cognitive science models tend to be very domain-specific. They might focus on expertise in a particular sport, playing a specific musical instrument, or making medical diagnoses in a certain field. Very targeted.
Like chess masters or expert
Oh,
radiologists?
exactly. Counselor development models, on the other hand, typically have much broader scope. They encompass not only counseling techniques and client assessment, but also the development of professional identity, that whole journey from being a student and novice to potentially becoming a supervisor and leader in the field.
Ah, so it's bigger than just the skills.
Much bigger. It's a much more holistic view of professional growth for you to consider.
It's a much more encompassing view of professional evolution. You're not just mastering a specific set of skills, you're evolving as a professional in a much wider sense, taking on different roles and responsibilities.
Right.
The second major difference is the typical time frame associated with the development of expertise.
Exactly. Cognitive science models, particularly the influential work of Erickson and Lehman, often suggests something in the range of 10 years of consistent, deliberate practice as a general benchmark for reaching expert-level performance in many domains.
10 years. That's a long haul.
That's a substantial investment of time, definitely.
Now, if you compare that to the typical counselor development models, they often describe a progression through just 3 or 4 stages, with the final stage often being reached around the time of graduation or shortly thereafter.
It's much faster.
It's a much more compressed timeline being suggested, isn't it?
It is a significant difference. The article does highlight the exception of Schofield and Ronestad's model, which takes a longer view, seeing professional development as a lifelong journey of continuous learning and refinement,
More like the 10-year idea.
more in line with the ongoing improvement emphasized in the cognitive science perspective, yeah? But generally, the counselor development models tend to imply a quicker progression to a defined endpoint of expertise.
Interesting. And the final key difference they emphasize is the significant role of the learner-supervisor relationship.
Ah, the supervision piece. Crucial.
Right. Cognitive science models certainly acknowledge the importance of feedback in developing expertise. You need to know how you're performing to improve, obviously.
Of course.
But they don't typically delve into the specific dynamics of the coach or supervisor relationship itself. The focus tends to be more on the nature and quality of the feedback provided, the information itself.
Right. The emphasis is on the information being conveyed, less on the relationship delivering it. In contrast, the supervisor-supervisee relationship is absolutely central to counselor development models. It's viewed as the primary engine for the trainee's growth and development,
It's the place where learning happens.
pretty much. Stoltenberg's model really exemplifies this. It describes how novice counselors are often very dependent on their supervisors, seeking concrete guidance and sometimes believing there's a single right way to approach things.
Like looking for the answer key.
Kind of. But as they gain more experience and confidence, that relationship often evolves, becoming more complex, even involving some tension or ambivalence.
Ooh.
Much like the shifting dynamic between teenagers and their parents as they strive for independence while still needing support. There can be some push and pull.
That's a really insightful analogy. The evolving nature of that supervisory relationship, the different needs of the learner at different stages of development, these are key elements in counselor development models that don't typically receive the same level of focus in the more general cognitive science models of expertise.
Definitely a key differentiator.
So to recap for you, we've seen these two significant fields, counselor development and cognitive science on expertise, evolve largely in their own lanes with, well, surprisingly little interaction.
Yep, running on parallel tracks.
We've identified some really compelling similarities. The fundamental importance of experience, the cognitive transformations that accompany expertise, and those qualitative shifts in how experts approach challenges.
Good common ground there.
But we've also highlighted some key differences in the breadth of what they study, broad versus narrow. The typical timeframes they consider for expertise to develop, shorter versus potentially decades, and particularly the central role of the learner-supervisor relationship in the world of counseling.
Big differences, yeah. And what's truly valuable for you in understanding this, as the article suggests, is that recognizing these parallels and divergences can offer a richer perspective on how expertise develops in really any field you might be interested in.
It broadens your toolkit for thinking about learning.
Exactly. It provides a more comprehensive lens through which to understand this fascinating process of growth and mastery.
Absolutely. It gives you, our listener, a broader framework for thinking about what it truly takes to become highly skilled in any area of endeavor. So here's a final thought for you to consider. How might intentionally bridging these two perspectives enrich our understanding and practice in both fields?
Hmm. Interesting question.
For instance, could a greater emphasis on the mentor-mentee relationship, a cornerstone of counselor development, potentially accelerate the acquisition of specific skills studied by cognitive scientists? Like, could better coaching, relationally speaking, speed things up in chess or medicine?
Or the other way around.
Or could the broader focus on professional identity development and counseling offer new ways of thinking about what it means to be an expert in domains beyond just technical skill mastery? You know, the whole person expert.
Food for thought.
Definitely. Ponder that, perhaps even explore some of the research we've touched on and see what connections what you can make. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.